Dr. Facilier and King Magnifico are two Disney villains who share one glittering ingredient, magic. But while one became a lasting symbol of charm wrapped in danger, the other struggled to make a real impression. Facilier practically moonwalks through his movie with rhythm and swagger, turning darkness into a show you can't look away from. Magnifico, meanwhile, shows up with everything that should work: authority, style, ambition, power, even a sympathetic backstory. And yet, the end result feels strangely muted. So what happened? Why does one villain feel iconic, while the other feels flat, like he's missing the spark that makes Disney villains unforgettable? The answer is simpler than it looks. It's the difference between performed evil and forced evil. From the very first frame, Dr. Facilier chooses who he is. He's not pretending, not negotiating his identity, not waiting for the story to label him. He steps into the role like he owns it, a showman, a hustler, a man who sells shadows with a smile. He's sharp-featured, all bright teeth and smooth confidence, dressed in carnival purples like a walking invitation. And he doesn't pull you into his world by power alone. He draws you in through temptation. He offers deals, shortcuts, a wink and a promise that says, "You want more? I can make that happen." He doesn't hide his darkness behind noble intentions. He puts it in the spotlight. He performs it. And that performance is exactly what makes him feel dangerous, and, in a twisted way, almost reliable. Facilier is the devil who keeps his word. The liar whose honesty is that he never pretends to be good. He isn't trying to convince you he's virtuous. He's trying to convince you the bargain is worth it. Now compare that with Magnifico. Magnifico enters as a savior. He's handsome, regal, polished, and framed like a protector. He has a tragic past that practically begs for empathy, and the movie leans into it hard. We're shown a man with burdens, a king who carries responsibility, someone who claims he's shielding his people from pain and disappointment. And that's where the problem begins. The story works too hard to establish him as good. Because when the plot later forces him to turn dark, it doesn't feel like a natural character evolution. It doesn't feel like a steady descent. It feels like a switch being flipped because the script needs him to be the villain now. His fall isn't organic, it's narrative obligation. Magnifico doesn't start as a villain we're watching unfold. He starts as a hero-coded figure who suddenly gets boxed into the role of antagonist. He doesn't feel like he chose evil. He feels like evil got assigned to him. And in Disney, nothing exposes a villain faster than their song. A truly great Disney villain song isn't just catchy, it's a declaration. It tells you what the villain believes, what they want, and how they see the world. It's personality turned into music. It's identity. That's why Friends on the Other Side works so well. It isn't merely a song, it's a manifesto, a masterclass in manipulation. In a few verses, we learn everything: who Facilier is, how he operates, what he's hungry for, and how dangerous he can be. The rhythm is slick, the mood is hypnotic, the charm is deliberate. It's the kind of evil that knows it's charming and uses that as the weapon. Facilier doesn't just do magic, he sells magic. He packages it, he markets it, he makes it feel like the most irresistible product you've ever wanted. And the animation backs him up. Every grin, every gesture, every shadowy flourish feels purposeful. He's in control of the room because he's in control of the performance. Now, look at Magnifico's big musical moment. This is the thanks I get? It's supposed to be the turning point, the moment he fully embraces villainy. But instead of sounding like a tyrant stepping into his power, it often lands like a complaint letter with a melody. He isn't roaring, "Now I rule." He's grumbling, "Why doesn't everyone appreciate me?" He's not reveling in corruption, he's irritated about recognition. And that matters. Because classic villains don't apologize for wanting domination, they enjoy it. Even when they're angry, there's confidence underneath. They aren't justifying themselves, they're celebrating themselves. Magnifico spends his song explaining why he deserves more, why he's right, why people should be grateful. That's not terrifying, that's defensive. It's the difference between a villain who owns the darkness and a villain who merely slips into it. Dr. Facilier's motivation can be summed up in one clean sentence: I want more. More power, more wealth, more control, more respect. But beneath that ambition is something darker and more desperate: debt. Facilier isn't just hungry for power, he's haunted by what it costs. His strength comes from forces he doesn't fully dominate, and he owes them. That debt gives his ambition a pulse. It adds urgency. It adds fear. He isn't evil just because it's fun. He feels like a man running out of time. Every deal, every charm, every flick of the tarot feels like bargaining against his own doom. That's what makes him compelling. His evil is clear and intentional, but his desperation makes it human. He's ruthless, yes, but he's also trapped. And that contradiction makes him feel real, like a villain with stakes that go beyond "because I'm bad." Magnifico's motivation starts in a much softer place. At first, it's almost noble. Protect the people, keep them safe, spare them from heartbreak. But somewhere along the way, care twists into control. He stops protecting dreams and starts hoarding them. He stops serving people and starts owning what they hope for. And that idea has serious potential. A king whose fear turns him into a tyrant, a protector who becomes a jailer, a leader who convinces himself that control is kindness. But instead of exploring that descent with sharp clarity, the film gets tangled in sympathy. It keeps sanding down his edges. It tries to make him tragic and threatening at the same time, and the result is that he often feels tired. Not chilling, exhausted. Not cruel, conflicted. Not terrifying, confused. And here's the core issue. You can't build fear if the story keeps asking you to feel sorry for the villain in every scene. A great villain can be complex, sure, but they still need conviction. They need to want what they want with certainty. Magnifico's conviction wobbles, and when that happens, his danger evaporates. A villain is only as powerful as the world around them, and The Princess and the Frog gives Facilier a world perfectly designed for his brand of evil. New Orleans in that film is alive. It breathes. It's a city of rhythm and temptation, faith and contradiction, jazz in the streets, class divides in the background, culture and color everywhere. The setting isn't just pretty, it's meaningful. It carries history, energy, and tension. It feels like a place where dreams and desperation collide, where deals and dangers don't feel out of place. Facilier doesn't just exist in that world, he belongs to it. His magic feels like a natural extension of the city's atmosphere, like the shadow to its light, like the whisper underneath the music. Because the world is vibrant, his threat feels grounded. He isn't just some random sorcerer dropped into the plot. He feels like part of the ecosystem, a predator who knows the streets, the people, the weaknesses, the longings. Now we get to Wish and Rosas. Rosas is beautiful, yes, but it's also sterile. It's polished to the point that it barely feels lived in. People smile and hand over their wishes, and the story doesn't always let us feel the emotional cost of that transaction. It tells us it matters, but it doesn't always make it hurt. And that's a huge problem for building a villain. Because if losing a dream doesn't sting, then stealing it doesn't feel truly evil. If giving up your deepest hope looks painless, then taking it away looks like a policy choice, not a moral crime. Magnifico's tyranny ends up feeling weightless because the story doesn't consistently show the consequences with enough force. His darkness glows in a world with no shadow. His control exists in a place where the stakes feel muted. And a villain without stakes is just a guy being unpleasant. Evil needs contrast. It needs something pure enough to corrupt, something fragile enough to threaten, something valuable enough to lose. New Orleans gives Facilier noise, mess, life, hunger, everything a villain can exploit. Rosas gives Magnifico smooth perfection, and perfection is hard to endanger when it already feels artificial. In New Orleans, Facilier thrives in the chaos. In Rosas, Magnifico drowns in the stillness. One villain commands a stage. The other feels like he's trapped in a glass display case of villain requirements. In the end, the difference between Dr. Facilier and King Magnifico isn't mainly power, design, or even music. It's philosophy, and its authorial commitment. Facilier works because the writers let him be a villain. He's unapologetically evil, and the film never tries to launder him into something noble. He knows what he is. He enjoys what he is. And that self-awareness becomes its own form of power. He performs wickedness like it's an art form, like an actor stepping into a role he was born to play. So when his downfall comes, it feels poetic and inevitable. He's devoured by the very shadows he thought he controlled. His ending doesn't feel random. It feels like destiny snapping shut. That isn't just punishment. That's poetic justice. Magnifico fails because the story never fully commits to who he is. Half savior, half tyrant. Half tragic, half threatening. He's pulled between empathy and fear and ends up losing both. The narrative doesn't let him make a clear choice. It doesn't let him step into villainy with agency. It simply labels him bad now and pushes him forward. And that's the tragedy. A villain without conviction is just a broken concept. You can't both understand evil and explain it away every time it appears. Because when you over-justify darkness, you drain it of mystery. And mystery is the ingredient that makes evil feel beautiful, terrifying, unforgettable. True evil is born from contrast. A hero chooses hope, and a villain chooses control. But modern stories often feel the need to explain everything. Every wound, every trauma, every insecurity, until what used to be chilling becomes predictable. Facilier enchants us because he doesn't sit us down and ask for sympathy. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't over-explain. He simply is. Magnifico loses us because he never stops explaining. And nothing kills fear faster than too much explanation. So here's the final truth. Either let a villain live their evil openly, or commit fully to their tragedy and make the descent unavoidable. But if you try to do both, if you keep one foot in sympathy and the other in menace, you'll end up with neither. And that's the line between creating a legend and writing a villain people forget the moment the music fades.